So have you ever looked into the audiophile hobby and you wonder to yourself, do I really need to spend a lot of money to get the sound that I want? Do I really need to spend $100, $300, $500, $1,000, $2,000 to get good sound? Well, the simple answer to that is no. You don't need to spend over $1,000 or even over $100, $200 to get good sound. Now, the more complex answer would be, it depends on what you mean by good sound. Where someone's standard lies, it really depends on the person. But a good question is, what if you just want decent sound? You don't want to spend too much money, you don't want to linger too long in this rabbit hole of a hobby, you don't want to go down so deep that you end up one day spending $1,000 on a DAC, $1,000 on IEM, and a few $100s on cables, tips, and all the different accessories and everything that comes with the hobby. You just want to stop yourself at the beginning. You want to spend a little bit of money, get decent sound, and jump out of the hobby. Are there any IEMs that fits that category? In this video, I'm gonna show you 5 of those. Hey friends, Tim here back to another video on Giz Audio, and today we have 5 super cheap IEMs under $50 that can get you in and out of this hobby very fast. You just get these and don't ever look at this hobby again. Save yourself the money and the pain of always looking for something better, I guess. Now, of course, I don't vouch for anyone to leave this hobby. I myself love this hobby a lot. I own many IEMs from $50, actually from $12 all the way to like a couple $1,000s. It is a really exciting hobby, and the further you go up, if you buy better IEMs, sounds do get better. You get better details, better soundstage, better imaging, more realism, and all of that, right? But to say that you need to get there to get good sound, it's not quite right. You don't need to spend that much money. Of course you can, and you could get those type of high-end sound, but you don't really need to. Good sound or decent sound for me starts at a measly $50. You can get decent sound at that low of a price. Before I jump into the 5 suggestions, let me explain to you what makes an IEM good, or what makes good sound in the most basic way I can possibly describe it. So what makes an IEM sound good really boils down to 2 things: tuning and technicalities. And this is not an original idea. I actually grabbed this from Critical. I learned this mostly from his website. So credit goes straight to Critical. Without his website, I probably wouldn't know as much as I do today. So if you want a more detailed explanation, I urge you to check out his website. I'll leave a link down below. But to put it in the most simplistic of ways, number 1, the tuning is basically how an IEM sounds or comes across. Is it a bassy IEM? Is it really trebly or sparkly? Or is it more neutral? Is it V-shaped? That's all in the tuning. A very poorly tuned IEMs are mostly unbalanced. Maybe the bass is not really well controlled. There's too much bass. It blocks out the mid-range, it blocks out the vocals, or it's too bright, it's too sibilancy, and it's just fatiguing to listen to. A better tuned or good tuned IEM will not have such problems, or will have less of those problems. Now, the one really cool thing about tuning is that it is over half the battle. If an IEM is well tuned, it will sound really good. Regardless of how well detailed, how much soundstage or imaging it has, it will sound good if it's tuned well. And the second cool thing about tuning is that really well-tuned IEMs can be found at pretty much any price range, starting from, again, less than $50 all the way up to $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, whatever. So you can actually get decent sounding IEMs at a lower price range, picking an IEM that is tuned very well. In these 5s, they're all tuned really well, so don't worry about that. But number 2 things that makes an IEM sound good is the details, right? The soundstage, the imaging, how realistic something comes across, how pinpoint imaging in your head is when you listen to the music and you picture a guitar or the piano on the right, the left, how wide the stage is, the depth of field in each song. All those things are under the technicality umbrella. Now, the higher you go in the IEM price tag, assuming you buy good ones, the better this aspect is gonna be. And it does add quite a lot to the experience audio-wise. It really gives you the true audiophile feeling when you get really nice and wide soundstage with good depth, great imaging. It really brings your music to the next level. But for me, if you really want to save money, do you need that aspect to be like top tier? You really don't. A really well-tuned IEM would most of the time suffice for your everyday listener. So now that we know what makes an IEM sounds good, let's jump into the 5 IEM that I picked out that is tuned very well. Maybe not the best when it comes to technical details, imaging, and soundstage, but you can be sure that in the tuning department, they all sound fantastic, and they all have their own unique qualities or their own unique tune that will fit your various different tastes. So number 1 IEM, the first one to talk about, is the Tripoen Leia. Now the Leia is a neutrally tuned IEM with a slight bit of bass boost. This is probably one of the cheapest IEMs that I would ever recommend to anyone. It is $25, I believe, or $24. Extremely cheap, very well tuned, natural type of feeling while still having some fun element in the bass. And the bass here, of course, is very well controlled, giving the mid-range this kind of clear presentation, very vocal forward, clean, clear presentation. And overall signature is something that anyone can enjoy. It's very musical. Any genre of music will work well on this. The only people I see that might prefer something different than the Leia would be someone who's really into bass. You want monster bass. You want just booming in your ears, explosion in your brain. Then the Leia does not quite have that. But if you want a natural feeling IEM, natural sounding IEM, you want to experience what true neutral sounds like on the cheap, $25, the Leia is my single recommendation. The next IEM I want to bring up is called the Iems Ola. Now this is also a neutrally tuned IEM, but with more emphasis on the upper mids and the treble. So vocalists and instrumentals, those are going to come across more forward, more energetic, more lively, while the bass is going to be slightly bit more reduced in comparison to something like a Leia. So the good thing about this is that the style of tuning is very different from what you're gonna be used to if you listen to mainly mainstream items like Skull Candies, the Beats. Most of those IEMs are very bass heavy, V-shaped, where they really crush the mid-range, they kill the energy in the vocals. This is gonna feel completely the opposite of those style of tuning. So if you're used to those, this is gonna open your eyes to what audiophile sounds like, to what neutral vocal forward genre or vocal forward signature can sound like. And my God, the first time I stepped into this hobby, the first time I listened to this style of tuning, it is beautiful, breathtakingly beautiful. You've never heard vocals come across so realistic before, and all of those genres like R&B, K-pop, J-pop, anime soundtracks have never sounded so good. So yeah, $40, highly recommend this. And for $40 also, it is one of the more detailed, probably the most detailed IEM in the price range as well. So good bonus there. The third IEM I want to mention is the HC Sound Heartmirror. Now this is tuned similar to Iems Ola, the previous one we just talked about, but more enhanced in the treble, so more sparkly feeling. The vocalists, instrumentals like flutes, hi-hats, any one of those smaller sparkly elements gonna come across more lively and more forward on this than even on the Ola. Very smooth, sparkly sounding treble, very well done here. Less detailed than the Ola though, that's one of the downside, one of the trade-off. But if you want that extra bit of energy without any fatigues whatsoever, the Heartmirror is the one to go for. All right, next we move on to a slightly bit more fun and mainstream signature IEMs. I'm not talking mainstream as in like Beats or Skull Candy where it's just major V-shape. I'm still talking a rather neutral type of signature, but slightly bit more fun in the low end. The first one being the Tindy 2 Plus. Now this is a warmer style signature, which means that it has a slightly bit more in the low end that bleeds slightly bit into the lower mid-range. What this does is it gives the music more of a meatier and heavier feel. So male vocals, female vocals, instrumentals in general are gonna come across slightly bit more full-bodied, giving it that extra richness, if you will. The style of tuning of these IEMs are generally very versatile when it comes to the genre of music that it can work with. The vocalists still feel natural, so any genres that is focused on the vocals works really well on this, and genres that focus on the lower end works really well as well, because again, the bass and the little bit of warmth that it has give it that kind of body that makes those music sound very nice. So very versatile IEM, $50. Detail retrieval is also quite nice for $50 as well. So yes, $50. Great recommendation. And last but not least, we have another one from Tripoen. This one is called the Mele. Now this is the bassiest one that I'll recommend in this video. So for those of you who want extra bass in your IEM, you're listening to a lot of rock and roll, metal, EDMs, then this is the choice that I would recommend over all the other ones that I mentioned in this video. Now the bass on this, although is powerful, has a lot of it, both the mid bass and the sub bass, it doesn't sacrifice the cleanness of the mid range, so vocalists and instrumentals still come across well separated, clean, and natural on the Mele, despite the amount of bass that you get on here. And that's a big plus that a lot of cheaper IEMs really can't do. At $50, this is probably one of the best IEMs you can grab, alongside my other favorite, that is the Tansium Ola. I would say between the Mele and the Ola, if you like more bass, go with the Mele. If you want more natural vocal forward type of signature, go with the Ola. Both of those, I would say, are the best of the best you can grab under the $50 price bracket. So yeah, that is it for this video today. Those are my 5 recommendations. If you just want to jump into this hobby, grab something good, something that's arguably better than most of the mainstream markets out there, even at $200–300 in price tag, grab one of these 5 or even a few of these 5 and get out and save yourself the rabbit hole of this hobby. But if you do want better sound, you want an improvement that is truly audiophile-like, you do need to spend a little bit more money to get those. I would say around $200–400 at maximum, at the bare maximum. You really don't need to get any more than that to capture those extra technical elements that I was talking about. But if you just want decent sound, those 5 IEMs will do just fine.